what I'm showing you here is the 5 stages of electronic music production. And I like to show this people now. I found this a couple months ago, and it's really, it's a very keen observation on how you kind of transition through the creative process. And it starts with, well, and I should note before I begin, they give you kind of hard lines here, but it's very much a blurred kind of thing. Most of us here are kind of usually in between two of these stages at once. So it starts with initiation, right? And you're going in, you're like, oh yeah, this is cool, I want to get into this, right? What gear do I need? What DAW am I going to choose? You know, you make your first song, right? It's all fun and games at first, right? It's supposed to be fun. You're supposed to enjoy it a little bit. So if you are in this stage of, you know, getting into music, don't put pressure on yourself. And you'll hear me say this a lot. You know, just if you haven't made a song yet, just try making a full 3-minute composition and see what you can complete on your own. And challenge yourself to make a full composition and put it down and make that your first piece. And then you can set that down and move on to what we call the learning phase. So this is where things start to really pick up in pace. And obviously you're learning a lot. You have this big exponential curve of learning where you are just like ramping up, right? You guys a lot of you have been through this, where you learn a lot of things, you get really productive on your sessions, and you're starting to apply all these techniques you're learning to your sessions. But you hit the top of the curve, and you hit what's called this thing called a dip, right? And I'm sure, like most of you are probably in this phase right now, right? I know I was in this phase for a good 3 years of my life, trying to overcome this kind of overwhelming feeling that is, you know, being your own artist and being a producer out in the scene. And I really made a mistake here. Like I said before, you know, I made this big mistake of wanting to put my music out there prematurely and wanting to push myself as an artist before I truly dealt with these overwhelmed situations and figured out how to surpass them on my own. So from my experience, you know, this is probably the hardest. This is the hardest part of music production. You know, you have reached the pinnacle of your learning, and it's kind of tough now because all these things you've learned, it's a big, you know, tool belt of stuff that you have at your arsenal. And here, you know, you're gonna, if you guys can read through these articles on your own, but I'm just kind of skimming. But you know, you have to be consistent, you have to be patient, and you have to push through it. And what you're doing is creative problem solving. You know, this is something that I didn't really have this term for it, but I love this term now that I know it, because it's so true, akin to what we're doing here as producers, right? We are, once you're in this point of, you know, making music that you want to make, and not just because you learned something that allowed you to make it, then you're faced with this point of you have problems that you have to overcome, and really it's a creative problem-solving effort where you can take logical steps and approaches towards your goals and just breaking it down into minimal pieces. And I can tell you, well, okay, before I drop that bit, this is where I would say I'm at right now, right? I wouldn't actually say I'm completely in this stage. Like I said, there's blurred lines between these things. I'm definitely still in the dip a little bit myself, and I still deal with creative blocks all the time. Brandon, you know this. Me and this guy back here had a collab we started a couple weeks ago, right? Spent a good week. We had a couple sessions where we didn't really have much inspiring work done. But, you know, we kept at it, and we kept pushing through these creative blocks. And just this last Tuesday, we ended up having a huge breakthrough, ended up completing 90% of this track we wanted to make. You know, we went through a lot of trial and error to try and discover what we were trying to make initially. And a lot of times you have these ideas in your head of like what you want to make. But by the time they get onto the computer, it's really only one element of the piece of that you want to make. And it involves a lot of problem solving to achieve this gorgeous background harmony and beat that's going to background this melody that you probably, most of the time it's melody that you're thinking of, right? Foreground, conscious focus. And a lot of this music comes from the subtle elements, and you'll find when you get to a point of mastery, you can hear all of the subtle elements and you can start putting them in without even thinking about it. You know, you're just throwing this stuff in like just to try it out, and you become more and more fearless as you learn to deal with these creative blocks. And you'll find that, you know, your favorite producers, if you watch them in the studio, everyone will say the same thing. They're all fearless, right? They just go. They just go, 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 go. They're not sitting and getting self-conscious about an idea ever. They're not overthinking an idea. You know, they're putting something on the page, trying it out. If it doesn't work, they move on and they keep on working. So this is the true art of mastery right here, man. If you get to the point where you can, and you know, mastery is, now we have different genres, of course, right? So you can kind of master certain genres over another, and you start to learn to specialize. And that's another tip I have if you are getting into this proficiency out of the dip phase. You know, focus or specialize your genre, you know? Choose a couple. Don't try and do every freaking genre in the book like I was getting into this, trying to do dubstep or electro, house, and moombahton, like all at once. You know, you want to specialize and really focus on what's going on. And you know, proficiency, a lot of if you are the proficiency stage and you're looking to finish your music, this is where you would want to do a lot of referencing, and this is that's the stage where you can actually find, I think they have a link in here about referencing. Let's see. Oh yeah, see, advanced learning and remaking. So you can see they tell you to listen attentively, right? And what you're going to notice is there's a lot going on in these professional pieces that you don't really hear right off the bat, and you have to sit there, listen to it a few times, and pay attention to what's really going on in the background. And you start to learn what's really going on in your favorite music and be able to do that yourself. So, and I really don't think through sheer dumb luck and trial and error, you're going to really find anything too much of a new sound or anything. Because a lot of these things have been done. You know, a lot of these sounds have already been made, and we're really at a point of hybridization where you can create your own sound involving, or by hybridizing a few different sounds that you're into, kind of creating a new spin on what's currently out there. So it's not necessarily about, you know, sitting in a room by yourself and isolating yourself for years and years until you find this sound, right? And you know, I thought that for a long time, and you know, letting go of that was that philosophy of like, oh, this is, you know, not truly mine if I copy it or something like that, you know. Yeah, it's just self-defeating, and it's going to stop you from achieving your goals. So I hope I didn't put any of you down by doing this. I want you all to know that, you know, you're into this now. It's week 4, right? If you're here, you kind of like, okay, I kind of want to do this now, right? So just know, like, this is kind of a warning. You know, you're setting yourself up for a long journey, and if you can totally treat this as a hobby, but if you're looking to take this seriously, it is a lifelong journey, and you do have to devote yourself to this cause of, you know, putting yourself into an artist mindset.